Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama, and we're doing a Facebook Live today. Excuse me. Nice little sip of cool water. Yeah, I'm going to wait for people to begin to gather. I know some people have planned to show up for this, and others will watch it later when they are available for it. This is a topic that was requested of me to speak about. And the topic is supporting loved ones with the law of attraction. Hey, Ellen! Oh, you know what? You just make my day when you show up. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. And in fact, I think you are the one who requested this topic. So, especially for you. Hey, Susan, you're another one. I could just feel like I just get a warm hug whenever you're around. Thank you for being here. Excellent, excellent. So, yeah, we're going to focus on, and Joan, one of my favorite people in the universe. So glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. I love it. This is a topic because everybody, I'm going to guess 99% of the people in this Inviting Miracles group are sensitive empaths. And so I can go to the bank on the idea that we are so open to the suffering of others and sometimes would do anything to make it stop, to make them feel better. Whether there are children, and for many of us here that would be the focus, our children, our spouse, a sibling, a parent, especially an aging parent. So we develop some really dysfunctional patterns in terms of that kind of helping. So we're going to start by talking about what Abraham tells us about this, which is that we can't feel bad enough to help them feel good. We can't feel sick enough to help them get well. We can't be unhappy enough to help them get happy. Okay, so our first commitment in this journey of how do we support a loved one using the law of attraction has to be the commitment to my own feeling good. Because without that feeling good piece, without that emotional engine, I'm not aligned with anything that I want. So I'm going to say it again because it's really important. Without me feeling good, I am not aligned with anything that I want. And that includes helping a loved one to feel better, whatever their struggle is. And if you think about it, when I'm feeling good, when you're feeling good, and a loved one is then in our energy field, what do you suppose that does? It automatically lifts them vibrationally. Because either, if we're going to be together in the same space energetically, either I have to go down to their feeling level or they have to begin to rise up to my feeling level. Well, which would we prefer? We would prefer that we are able to hold our energetic alignment strongly enough, firmly enough, consistently enough that they will begin to rise up to that we are very influential in that way. So, we have to look at the codependent tendencies that we've developed to mind other people's business. There's some great sayings in Italian that speak to us about just take care of your own stuff. My grandmother used to say, "Fateli fatti tui." That means just take care of your own stuff. And then in her broken English, she would say, "It's no you business." So both really strong statements about take care of yourself. You are not in control. You're not in charge of. Joan and I have talked about this numerous times with respect to loved ones. We're support staff. We're not the boss. They're the boss. And whether or not we like the way they're managing their lives, we are support staff. And we have to remain in that somewhat background position of support staff. And at the same time, we have to face our fears of that come up because of the patterns we've developed. We have to face our fears of, what if I don't fix it? What if I can't fix it? What if they don't let me fix it? What if I'm not capable of fixing it? Yeah, Joan says, oh my God, yes. Yeah, exactly. And so that those kinds of catastrophic what ifs will plummet our vibrational frequency, won't they? We start catastrophizing and bam, we are down underneath the rug. Forget the floor, we're under the rug. And so this is a very good time when we realize that we're doing that to use our very powerful theta what if tapping process to take those what ifs and to turn them over. What if they get pissed off when I try to fix it? Well, generally they will, because, hello, nobody likes to be controlled. And when I try to fix it, that absolutely denotes I'm going to control it. True with kids, and also true, as many of us have found, with elderly parents. Okay? Again, we are support staff, and they may get pissed. And, here's an interesting thing that I learned when I first became a therapist, that when there's a dynamic interaction between people, if you get annoyed at the other person, then the other person's simply looking for attention. It's kind of no big deal, although, it can wear on you after a while. However, if you get pissed in an interaction with somebody, then that is a sure sign that you are in a power struggle. So if they get pissed when you try to fix it, Joan, then that means that they are pushing back against. They are in a power struggle for their independence, for their right to do it their way. You remember that commercial back in the day? Mother, please, I'd rather do it myself. It's that kind of thing. So we're looking at how to be respectful. At the same time, we're being supportive. And let's face it, at the same time, because of who we are, that we're holding a higher vision for them. That we're really wanting them to be able to rise to another level of happiness and functionality. I remember when my son was a young teenager, and boy, he really went off the rails. He was in such emotional distress and started using drugs, and it was really it was bad. It was a very bad crisis for him, bless his heart, and it was a really strong crisis for our family. And I was constantly, Maria Petrucci says, and true with elderly parents with dementia and children with cognitive disabilities, absolutely, though it feels harder with them than with others. Absolutely. I mean, we can throw some really strong variables into the mix. And by and large, what that does is even further reduces our level of control over the situation. So when my son was really in trouble, it was so easy to catastrophize, What if he dies? What if somebody gets hurt? What if he gets arrested? The list was endless. And so that's one of those times when Spirit just downloaded all these what ifs for me. And so I was constantly flipping over, catastrophizing thoughts, because I was committed to one thing, and that was to find my everyday joy, because I believed what Abraham told me, that if I kept my vibration high, that was the best thing I could do to help the situation. And man, that's hard to do when you see a family member really falling apart. So one of the pieces to this, to holding ourselves vibrationally higher, is to remember that we have to be grounded, we have to be centered, we have to be balanced. That's how we stay in alignment. It's not just about our thoughts. It's also about inhabiting our bodies and remaining in a centered, balanced, grounded place. Then when we have raised our vibration to where we'd like it to be, and that means we're aligned with all the things that we want, we're better able to hold on to that vibration, to be that vibration, if we're grounded and centered. When I'm worried, when I'm fearful, my energy is going to be either, as I call it, from the eyebrows up, or it's going to be above my head, like a cartoon bubble. It's going to be pretty much out of my body, either some of it here and the rest of it here, or all of it up here. And so what you want to be able to do at those times when you're worried, when you're fearful, is to recognize that energy is floating around up here. There's a lot of cognition going on, a lot of thinking, a lot of left braining, and you want to let it drop down into your pelvis, just like a soccer ball. Okay? So you're consistently going to want to bring yourself back into your body. When we're worried and when we're fearful about a loved one and what will happen, our energy flies up and out of us frequently. So that's something to keep a check on. Where's my energy? Is it here? Is it in my body? Is it in my heart? Is it in my solar plexus? Is it in my pelvis? Or is it in my head doing a lot of ruminating? Or is it above my head where I've completely vacated the premises? That is not helpful to anybody, because from that position, you really can't control your vibration, and so you can't really be helpful to anybody. So you want to bring yourself back into your body. We've talked about scripting a little bit in the group the last couple of weeks, and that's a really powerful thing to do. And I'm going to be very frank with you. It may not change the external situation that you're looking at with your loved one, but it will make you feel a hell of a lot better. That's the bottom line. And very often it does have a net effect on the external situation because you're feeling a whole lot better, because you're raising your vibration. So whether it's written or whether you say it aloud to yourself when you're in the car or you're just moving around the house doing stuff, you're speaking in the present tense and you're talking about things as if they already are exactly the way you want them to be. And that allows you to become to vibrate higher, and as you do so, then you are aligned with not only your highest good, but their highest good. And there's this sort of paradox in there, which is it's a place of surrender, because I can't decide what their highest good, I can decide what I would prefer for them, but I'm not the one in charge of what their highest good is. I don't know what their highest good is. And that takes me to another really important piece, which is I don't know what their soul plan is. I don't know if you buy into this, but I do. I think we come in with a plan to learn some lessons and to interact with people who've agreed to have certain kinds of relationships with us. And if I don't know what their soul plan is, then I can't possibly know whether they're on track with it or not. So I can't possibly know what's for their highest good. I can tell you for sure that from the outside, my suffering might have looked like I was way off track to people who loved me. But from the point of view of my soul, man, I was right on track, and I was learning exactly what I came here to learn. And I was learning it in spades, because when I didn't get it completely, the universe would kick my ass again with a challenge. So again, I want us to be able to step back into a more humble place, a place of more humility, where we can recognize that I don't know my loved one's soul plan. I don't know the way this is supposed to go down. I know what will make me more comfortable, if they're happier, if life looks easier for them, if they succeed in achieving their goals and their dreams. Yeah, that will make me feel a whole lot better. I don't know that that's their soul plan. Does anybody have a question about that? Because that's, we're getting really into higher consciousness about this. Okay, well, just jot your question down if you have one. I also want to mention the difference between compassion and controlling. It's obvious, right? But there's a huge energetic difference between loving things the way they are and loving people the way they are and trying to fix them. I came across a meme a few weeks ago and I shared it. Not sure I can remember it verbatim, but it was something like, I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm a reality to be lived. And I think that speaks volumes to us about this particular topic. Our loved one is not a problem to be solved. There may be very real, in the world, reality kinds of problems to be solved. We're talking about an elderly parent, as Maria brought up. Then we're talking about care, and we're talking about physicians, and we're talking about support, and we're talking about medicine, and we're talking about all kinds of things. Talking about the quality of end of life. And we can bring a tremendous amount of compassion to that. But we often see what happens when what we bring to it is a need to control, because bottom line is our vulnerable self is pretty freaked out by what's happening to our parent. It's difficult. Same thing with a child. We can be very freaked out by what's happening to our child. I mean, I certainly was. And so we do bring all kinds of controlling behaviors to the table that generally will simply instigate the power struggle. Because most self-respecting people, when somebody tries to control them, they're going to push back. They don't want to be controlled. So we're going to keep on returning to the idea of paying attention to the highest good here for us and for our loved ones is that I decide to feel good, that I keep returning to feeling good, that I keep finding ways to feel good, that I can recognize and step out of the codependent, controlling pattern that sounds like I cannot feel good until I am assured that I have taken care of and fixed your problem. Okay, that's the heart and soul of codependency. I can't feel good. I can't do whatever I came to do in the world with any kind of joy if I'm focused on trying to control them. So Joan is asking, how do you deal with that loved one being nasty or hateful toward us? Well, there are a couple of ways to deal with that. One is to withdraw. The other is to not respond in kind. But at some point, depending on the level of whether we're dealing with dementia or whether we're dealing with a loved one, whether young or old, who's so out of control that anger is their default emotion, we have to set limits and we can remove ourselves from the situation. What we want to be real clear about is that we don't allow abusive behavior. And that in many situations is easier said than done. Maria says, my daughter has Down syndrome. She's been having more negative physical symptoms lately, and I've been trying to control her food portions and making sure she isn't eating foods she's sensitive to, but she pushes back and I feel like giving up. Sometimes it feels like this is what I should do, give up, and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a straight line. We don't sort of find a place and we're like, oh, thank gosh, this is the way to deal with this. There are times when we feel like, okay, she's being receptive. Hey, Mayzara, thank you for being here. That's lovely. It's wonderful when she's cooperative. And at other times when she pushes back, that may be a time to get more creative. Again, I'm going to say this again and again. What's really irresistible is me feeling good in the face of you pushing against me. So, Maria, when your daughter pushes back and you feel like giving up, it probably is a good idea for you to sit back and to find a really feeling good thought in your heart and to just be in that and let your daughter feel the energy that you're in, which is, I feel okay. I can't control you. I really don't want to control you. I have an idea that this might be helpful to you, but we're not going to fight about it because that will make both of us feel bad. It's very interesting, when the power struggle begins, the reality is that the first one to take their hand away, the first one to stop pushing back, is the one who will control the outcome. So you're going to be the one who first takes your hand away and stops pushing. You're going to say, okay, I'm not going to try to control you. So taking a different tack can sometimes be surprising. She may be expecting you to push harder and to insist because you're fearful that if she doesn't, if she eats the foods that she's sensitive to, then, she'll have a bad reaction and you'll have to deal. So if you react in a different way, which basically puts her in the driver's seat. How old is she, Maria? Just curious. But putting her in the driver's seat, even a very young child, gives him that sense of control. And then they don't have to push against you because you're not pushing anymore. And then they really get to sit with their decision. So, I mean, the words "you decide" are very powerful. You decide. I'm giving you an idea of what I think would be helpful, and you decide. She's 23. Okay, yeah, so plenty old enough for you to say, you decide. I'm not the boss of you. You're a 23-year-old young woman. I have an idea about how foods are affecting you, but maybe you think differently about it. So see how it works out for you. Or as my husband would say in his sarcastic way sometimes, how's that working out for you? Bring some lightness to it, because, we get this sort of deadly intensity when it's about helping a loved one that we think really needs to do something a particular way. And we want to really lighten that up. We want to really step back so that we're not initiating a power struggle and move back into that place of feeling good. Move back into, maybe you have to, what if yourself for a minute. Like, well, what if I don't control her food? And that works out fine. What if in the end she does learn what foods are good for her and what foods she has bad reactions to? What if I can relax about this? Wouldn't that be something? So we kind of gently talk ourselves down from that place of intensity about having to control. So we want to, as much as possible, we want to find our everyday joy. Many people here who know me know that was the name of my business a number of years ago, Everyday Joy Coaching. And again, this came up during that time of turmoil with my son and the rest of my family, because it became very clear to me that no matter what was going on, I needed to be the one to look for, find, align with my everyday joy. Maria says, I've done this. It certainly feels good in the moment. And maybe if I did this long term, I might start to see changes or not just accept it. Yes, having her feel it herself would be awesome. Absolutely. I think that you could really affect a huge change by basically handing the locus of control back to your daughter and reiterating for her, you're a grown woman, you're 23 years old. I have no business trying to control you and your food. What do you think is the best, going to work out the best for you? Susan says, from 1983 to 2003, I was married to a narcissistic personality disorder. Not knowing what was wrong or how to deal with it, I had to ad lib. Fortunately, my intuition sent me in the direction you're describing. Scripting decent answers to obnoxious behavior, nasty accusations helped me to keep my mind intact. Yeah. That's where your control lies. How do I script my response? How do I script an answer to something that first of all, I'm not going to make it go away, and I'm not going to change it, and I'm not going to control it. As they say in Al-Anon, you didn't cause it, you can't change it, you can't control it. So what do I have control over? Brilliant, Susan. Scripting decent answers to obnoxious behavior and nasty accusations helped me to keep my mind intact. Really brilliant. And so I would bring that back to you, Joan, because you asked earlier, how do we deal with a loved one who is being nasty or toxic in response to our offers to help as controls, as support staff. I really urge us to find a place of lightness about this, because my God, we sensitive, empathic, beautiful, wonderful, but there's an intensity that comes with this, and our need to control and our need to show our loved one that we're right about this and they need to do it this way. Ellen says, it took my autism spectrum, but otherwise brilliant 23-year-old child until just now to shift with me in this dance. Yeah, it takes, it takes however long it takes. And because I know you, Ellen, I know that you're shifting your energies and your behaviors around the dynamics with your child have been tremendously helpful in your child being able to shift. And your child is also ready to shift. So remembering, again, the humility that I'm just a piece of the puzzle. I am not the universal fixer. I am not the boss of my child, my parent, my spouse. I'm not the boss of anybody. I'm rarely the boss of me, hardly ever, right? And so just relaxing, feeling good, finding joy, what-ifing our way out of worry and catastrophizing. More questions? This is such a... And you know what? Let's bring it back around to the topic of our group, which is inviting miracles. Joan says, I love that. I'm just a piece of the puzzle. That's right. I mean, in all humility, we are just pieces of the puzzle. The only universe I'm the center of is my own. Right? The only universe you're the center of is your own. And everybody feels that way. So we're going to bring it back around to the topic of our group, which is inviting miracles with the law of attraction. All the dynamic pieces that we've been talking about, and I'll give you a couple of tips before we close that just kind of underscore what we've been talking about. This is how we move into... Alan says, in the meantime, it's been so painfully difficult to ground myself in the dramatic moments which have been incessant. Oh, man, it's really hard. It's really hard. I will cop to that myself. When my son was off the rails emotionally, God bless his heart and soul, suffering so badly, I was much more reactive than I would have liked to be. And then I would go off and ground myself. But look, the fact is we're human. We're human. And as much as I'm learning lessons from my child, you're learning lessons from your child, they're also learning lessons from us. It's a two-way street. You know, we've got these soul agreements, which we may or may not be aware of the details of, but everybody's learning, you know, stumbling around trying to learn what they said they came here to learn. So the whole idea of inviting miracles means that we deal with this very human stuff and we get some patterns out of the way that keep our vibrations too low to attract a miracle. You know, being in a power with somebody and being pissed off about it, that's not helpful in attracting a miracle. So the more we can ground and center and release and remove ourselves from the power struggle and respect the other person's autonomy, that positions me much better to be in alignment with the miracle that I want, all the miracles that I want. Because let's face it, there's not just the miracle of I want my loved one to be happier. There are all kinds of other things. I want my heart to be more peaceful. I want to attract friends who understand my life experience. I want to be able to be grounded and centered enough to do the work I came to do in the world. There are all kinds of pieces to these inviting miracles puzzles. So I'm going to leave you with just 3 really simple tips, okay? The first is always and forever feel good. Find your everyday joy over and over and over and over. The second is to be grounded, centered, and aligned with your highest good, which will help you to be aligned with their highest good, even if you don't know what that is, because you probably don't. You're not privy to their soul plan. And the third is to be compassionate and flexible rather than controlling. Our controllingness comes out of fear, and we can step back from that. We can what-if ourselves into being able to be compassionate and flexible. What if I let go of trying to control this and it works out just fine? What if my letting go allows her to learn what she needs to learn? So many ways to take this. So we're going to close in just a minute. One more question or comment before we close? Okay. Well, I want to really sincerely thank all of you for being here. This was a really, really good topic for us to address. Susan says, thank you for your messages and affirmations. Oh, you're welcome, Susan. Thank you for saying so. Really important topic. Love you too, Joan. Again, for those of us who are sensitive and empathic and want only the best for our loved ones, sometimes putting our own feeling good first is the best thing we can do for them. And honestly, I don't think it gets any clearer than that. So on that note, I'm going to close. This is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama, signing off for now until our next Facebook Live. Okay, I'll say them again. Ellen, the 3 tips got cut off. The first is to feel good and find your everyday joy over and over and over and over. Find your pathways to your particular personal everyday joy. The second is to be grounded, centered, and aligned with your highest good, because in actual fact, being aligned with your highest good will align you with their highest good, even if you don't know exactly what that is. And third is to be compassionate and flexible, not controlling. Okay, you're welcome, Ellen. Thank you, everybody, for being here and giving me the opportunity to teach about this and to discuss it with you. And I look forward to a lot more gatherings. Oh, I love all the hearts. Thank you, thank you. Taking it all in. Okay, love every one of you. Thank you. See you next time.